Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Authorities in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh say that they have arrested 6 members of an alleged fraud operation this week after they were accused of stealing money from the bank accounts of victims using a clever ruse involving ATMs. According to reports, while the scheme was allegedly conducted in several states across the country, the criminal gang's operations were mainly focused in and around the city of Mainpuri. Each of the crimes went like this. An unsuspecting victim would walk up to an ATM and put their bank card in, at which point the card would become stuck in the machine. Someone would point them to a helpline number which was posted nearby, and after the victim called and gave some information, they would be instructed to leave their card and expect a call from a bank executive in the coming days. That call would never come, but at some point in the next week or so, the victim would realize that they had been robbed. According to police, this is how the gang pulled off the thefts. First, they would put strong glue in the card slot of the ATM that they were targeting. When a victim came by and unwittingly put their card in, it would become stuck, at which point one of the people involved in the scheme would suggest that they call the bank's helpline. Only, the number they pointed them to was not the genuine helpline. It was a fake call center set up by the suspects. Once the victim was on the phone, the fake bank representative would obtain personal banking details from the victim, then tell them to leave their card behind, assuring them that everything was fine. When the victim left, the suspects would allegedly use a scalpel, box cutter, or some other kind of tool to free the trapped bank card, which would be used at a later date at a different ATM to withdraw money using the victim's fraudulently obtained information. While the operation was fairly sophisticated, police say that they were recently able to crack the case and raid one of the locations that the suspects were working out of. When they did, they were able to seize 2 illegal guns, 48 ATM cards, a large amount of cash, 6 cell phones, and dozens of SIM cards that the suspects allegedly kept changing out to try and avoid detection. So far, police say that 6 suspects are in custody, though they expect more arrests to follow. Authorities in the South African city of Port Elizabeth are asking for the public's help this week as they desperately search for a missing newborn who was allegedly kidnapped from his mother. According to reports, 33-year-old Noncedo Jolly gave birth to her baby boy on November 22nd at a local hospital and was discharged on November 27th. That same day, an unknown woman came to meet with her saying that she had been sent by her family to assist with the child. As part of this supposed help, the woman accompanied Jolly and her son to nearby Kanako Mall, where Jolly planned to withdraw some money and buy clothes for the newborn. However, at some point during these errands, the woman allegedly took advantage of the chaotic and crowded environment and quietly took off with the baby. At the time of this recording, it appears that virtually nothing is known about the identity of the alleged kidnapper, though police are now circulating a composite image that has been created of her likeness to assist in the investigation. Anyone with information about this woman's identity, her whereabouts, or the whereabouts of Jolly's son is encouraged to reach out to police. Authorities in Western Australia say that a 30-year-old woman and her unborn child are in critical condition this week and are unlikely to survive, after an allegedly unprovoked assault ended with the woman being hit in the head with a piece of concrete. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the evening of November 29th when 30-year-old Diane Miller went to the Waterford Plaza shopping centre in the Perth suburb of Karawara. She was accompanied by her partner and 3 of her nieces, and was there to pick up dinner after a day of fun by the pool. Though the exact circumstances of what happened next have not been released, here's what we know so far. At some point, while in the parking lot of the plaza, Diane and her family members crossed paths with a group of suspects ranging in age from late teens to 20s. Police say that the group had, quote, gone out looking for trouble and found it. According to reports, an unprovoked assault started, which Diane's partner reportedly got involved in. It was then that things allegedly turned tragic, when one of the teenagers, described only as a 17-year-old boy, threw a piece of concrete. It hit Diane squarely in the temple, and she was instantly knocked to the ground unconscious. While Diane was rushed to the ICU, where she is still on life support at the time of this recording, her family says that things aren't looking good. Her brother claims that she has now been declared brain dead and is expected to pass away within hours. Adding to the horrifying tragedy is the fact that Diane is 5 months pregnant with her second child. Doctors say that the baby is too young to survive on its own. Diane's other child is only 8 months old. According to reports, the 17-year-old who threw the concrete that hit Diane is currently in custody and has been charged with grievous bodily harm and breach of bail. However, it said that those charges will be updated if Diane passes away. Authorities are asking for any members of the public who might have any additional information about the case to reach out to local police. In particular, they are looking for dashcam footage taken at the crime scene between 7 and 7:30 p.m. on November 29th. The situation is still under investigation, and police say more arrests could follow. Authorities in the Ecuadorian province of Manabí say that 7 alleged gang members are in custody this week after they stormed a hospital in a brazen attempt to kill a member of a rival criminal organization. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the evening of November 27th, when the suspects showed up and quickly made their way into the hospital in the town of Chone. Their faces were covered with balaclavas, and they were armed with a variety of guns. Once inside, the attackers began to spread out, threatening staff and knocking down doors. Several people were taken hostage as the suspects continued to go through each one of the building's rooms. Police now say that the gunmen were looking for a rival gang member, an unidentified 17-year-old who had been taken to the Chone hospital with serious injuries after being shot the previous night. He was recovering in the ICU at the time, though before his attackers could find him, police arrived at the scene. The heavily armed officers reportedly engaged in a standoff with the suspects that lasted for more than an hour. It ended when shots were exchanged, and finally, all of the gunmen were arrested. Miraculously, according to reports, all of the hostages were freed, and no one was killed. At the time of this recording, police say that all of the suspects remain in custody. They have been identified as 6 Ecuadorian men between the ages of 19 and 28, and 1 Venezuelan national who is 31 years old. The men are currently awaiting charges. Representatives from England's Greater Manchester Police say that they are investigating the brutal and mysterious murder of a 38-year-old family man this week after his body was found in a quiet residential area. The situation began at around 7 p.m. on November 24th, when police were called to a location on Kilburn Drive in the village of Shevington, with reports of an unsettling discovery. The body of a man had been found lying on a path between 2 houses which led to some open fields. Even more mysteriously, those who had discovered the body noted that it was covered in some kind of unknown white powder, and what looked like smoke appeared to be coming off of it. After cordoning off the area, police were able to identify the victim as 38-year-old Liam Smith. Smith had died of a fatal gunshot wound, but investigators say that he was also attacked with acid. As for the white powder, at the current time, reports are a bit murky. Though they all seem to agree that police have not identified the substance, they do not say whether this was the acid that they were referring to. Authorities have stated that they do not believe the mysterious powder poses any broader threat to the community, though that being said, have encouraged anyone who may have had direct contact with Smith's body to seek medical attention immediately. Understandably, Smith's murder has come as a significant blow to his family, who describe him as a kind-hearted and devoted father, and the life and soul of any party. It has also stunned neighbors and residents of the area, who say that this kind of thing is extremely out of the ordinary for their quiet village. At the time of this recording, the investigation into the case is ongoing, though police have not released the names of any suspects or possible theories concerning the circumstances that led up to Smith's killing. Anyone with information about the case is encouraged to contact police. Authorities in Japan's Fukuoka prefecture say that they have arrested a 41-year-old man this week after he pulled an equally bizarre and ironic stunt in the middle of a local police station. According to reports, the incident began on the evening of November 28th at a Fukuoka prefectural police station somewhere in the city of Kitakyushu. Just after 7 p.m. that night, officers and support staff were going about their usual business when out of nowhere, a startling commotion was heard coming from just inside the entrance. It turned out that a man, identified only as a 41-year-old office worker, had rode his motorcycle into the middle of the station's lobby and was now loudly revving his engine. Upon coming face to face with one of the officers, the 41-year-old reportedly revealed the strange intentions behind his disruptive and unannounced visit. Over the still blaring engine, he yelled, quote, "I'm here to talk about bad driving." After quickly arresting the motorcycle rider for unlawful entry, the police obliged him in a conversation. Seemingly lacking any sense of irony, the man allegedly explained that he wanted them to crack down on what he called rude driving. More specifically, he said that he had been cut off by another driver earlier that day, and that he also wasn't a fan of tailgating. Oh yeah, and he'd been having some problems with people at work as well. It's not clear why he threw that last bit in there, but hey, it's not like he was making a lot of sense before that anyway. That trend apparently continued when police asked him why he chose to ride the motorcycle inside. He replied, quote, "I knew there was a parking lot in the police station, but I rode up to the lobby." Yeah, so more of a description than an explanation, but it appears that's all police were gonna get. As for the man's fate, reports don't really mention, though some have speculated that at the very least, he may be looking at a suspended license. Authorities in Thailand's Nakhon Ratchasima province say that a wanted fugitive is finally in custody this week after he was accused of carrying out a heinous attack more than 11 years ago that claimed the life of his former mother-in-law and seriously injured his ex-wife. According to reports, the incident took place sometime on March 18, 2011, when then 35-year-old Pornsak Soikokesang went to the victim's home in Bua Yai district. He allegedly tried to reconcile his relationship with his ex-wife, but when she refused to take him back, he turned to violence. After shooting his former mother-in-law to death outside of her home, he reportedly attacked his ex to the point where he nearly killed her as well. Before fleeing the scene, he kidnapped their 2-year-old daughter, taking the child a short distance away before abandoning her in the middle of the street. Though police were extremely motivated to find Pornsak due to the brutal nature of the crime, he somehow managed to evade them for over a decade. It wasn't until recently, after receiving a tip that the now 46-year-old was living with his new wife and their child and was still in the province, that they started to zero in on his location. He was finally taken into custody this week. According to reports, Pornsak is now facing multiple charges, including murder with intent and attempted murder with intent. Authorities in the Brazilian state of Espírito Santo say that at least 3 people are dead this week and more than a dozen others are injured after a teenage gunman allegedly opened fire on unsuspecting people inside 2 different local schools. According to reports, the incident took place on the morning of November 25th in the municipality of Aracruz. It began at around 9:30 a.m. when the suspect, identified only as a 16-year-old boy, broke in to the Primo Bidi State School, a public elementary and middle school. He was reportedly dressed in camouflage military fatigues and was wearing a skull mask, a hood, and an armband with a swastika on it. He was also armed with at least 2 guns. Once inside the school, the teenager shot several people, killing 2 teachers. After running back to his vehicle, the gunman allegedly traveled just down the street to the second crime scene, this one a private school. There, he turned his weapons on even more people, killing a 6th grade girl. He fled the area immediately afterwards, but was tracked down and arrested by police about 4 hours later. In addition to the 3 deceased victims, at least 13 people were reportedly injured in the attacks, several of whom are still in serious condition at local hospitals. According to reports, the teenage gunman is the son of a military police officer whose weapons he allegedly used to carry out the heinous crime. Authorities now say that he had been planning the shooting for 2 years. The first school he targeted was one that he had attended until June. He managed to get in by breaking the lock on a door leading to the teacher's lounge. It's believed he had no personal connection to the private school. While it appears that so far authorities have not publicly speculated as to a motive behind the shootings, understandably, much of the media attention surrounding the case has been devoted to the teen's choice to wear the swastika armband during the attack. However, his family has also stated that he suffers from mental health issues and had previously received treatment, though did not elaborate. At the time of this recording, the situation is still under investigation, and the 16-year-old remains in police custody. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a minute to thank our amazing supporters over on Patreon. As many of you are aware, our situation on YouTube always seems to be a bit uncertain, but our patrons help to ensure that we can continue to make content like this long term without having to worry as much about what surprises might be thrown our way. Plus, patrons also get access to 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to join. You can also find that link in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care.